Welcome back for another Waterfowl Wednesday, and today we're going to be talking about decoy spreads. So, I've gotten a lot of questions and requests to do a video on decoy spreads. I've done 2 of them in the past, so if you want to go check those out after this video, go for it. But in this video, I'm basically going to cover the basics and some helpful tips that I use to set my decoys. I want to start this off by making it clear that it doesn't matter how many decoys that you have for your spread. In some situations it does, but most of the time, if you're hunting over a dozen to 2 dozen decoys, you're going to do just fine. But, you know, work with what you got. I'm not saying get 4 dozen decoys, go spend $400, and then you can kill ducks. You can kill ducks over a dozen decoys, and I've done it many times, so just work with what you got. That's the biggest thing I can emphasize to you guys. It doesn't matter how big your spread is, it matters where you set your spread. There's a few rules or guidelines that I like to follow when I'm setting up my decoys, and number 1 rule is the wind direction. When you're duck hunting, you either want the wind at your back or coming from your sides. You never want the wind to come hitting you in the face, because that means the ducks are going to finish behind you. Ducks and geese always finish facing into the wind. So if you have the wind at your back, the ducks will be coming towards you as they're starting to land. So keep that in mind and make sure you know the wind direction before you pick a place to hunt. And that's kind of the number 1 thing that I look at after I do scouting. I'm like, okay, I need to know the wind direction so I know where I need to go to set up to make this an effective place to hunt. I'm going to draw out some spreads on this paper, and hopefully you guys will be able to see it. And I'm gonna just use X's or circles or shapes for decoys. There's a few different spreads that I like to use, and I don't generally stray away from them. And you know, your spread, when you set it in the morning, it's not something that you set and then just call it good. If you notice the birds aren't liking something, the first thing I do is either put motion into the spread or take away the mojo in late season. So either put out a jerk cord or put out some mojos if I hadn't already, or pull the mojo if that's what's flaring the birds. But after that, I like to adjust the decoys to where the birds are liking it and they're going to finish where I want them to finish. Because sometimes I've had birds finish on the outsides of the spread, so I adjust the decoys accordingly to where I can get them to finish in the pocket where I want them to finish. So the first spread that I'm going to cover here is your generic. Everybody and their brother knows about this one. This is your horseshoe-shaped decoy spread. So we're setting up in the blind right here. Okay, I hope, yeah, you guys see that. And the wind direction is at our back. That is the ideal situation. What I do is I set up my decoys in a horseshoe shape. So like the letter U, and nothing in particular, you know, you just throw them out. I try to put a higher concentration of them where I want them to land, kind of right in front of the blind there, and I kind of just run it out. Now, if you want to put a mojo out there, I usually try to put it like a mojo right here, kind of halfway out. And if you have 2, put another one in here. And if you have some other motion decoys like the butt feeder things, you can stick them right here in the pocket in front of the blind. But that's your generic horseshoe shape. You know, if I have a dozen decoys, I'm gonna put half a dozen here, and then just stretch a few out here and stretch a few out that way and call it good. But the more decoys you have for this one, it makes it a little bit easier to make a big pocket. And you want to keep in mind how big your pocket is, because that is the landing zone for your ducks. They're going to come in, they're going to land in that open spot right there. Most of the time, sometimes they'll land out on the edges out here, but generally speaking, the ducks will finish right in that pocket. Next, we'll set up that same blind here, and now we're hunting a crosswind. The wind's coming that way. I hope you guys see that. Yeah, you can see that. So if the wind's coming this way, the ducks are going to land coming this way. Okay? And so what I like to do is I like to run a J. And so by that, I mean I take my decoys and then I wrap them like the letter J. I'm still keeping that kind of horseshoe shape, but I'm running a longer line across the blind here. So my decoys are going to just be kind of lined up right here. Really no particular fashion, just kind of spacing them out 3 to 4 to 5 feet in between them, and putting kind of a higher concentration of them right here at the tip of the U, kind of where I want them to finish, and then stretching some more out this way. And that's your J shape. I like to use the J shape when I'm hunting a crosswind. Just a little bit more convenient for me, and I think it's the best one. Sometimes I run a horseshoe, or sometimes I run a reverse J where I start it kind of shallow out here and wrap it long on the outside. Most of the time I'm running the bottom one here, but sometimes I find situations where this will work better. Sometimes if I'm kind of hunting in like a cove or something, or there's just different situations. But generally speaking, if you're hunting a crosswind, I like to run the J. Okay, so now we're gonna set up the same blind again, and we're gonna have the wind at our back once again. And sometimes I like to run one of these, and you know, this is something like if the ducks aren't liking the horseshoe shape, this is the next thing that I do. I take the horseshoe and then I run in and make a W in front of the blind. So I'm gonna run my decoys all along here, you know, 3, 4, 5, 6 feet between the decoys, and just kind of running them and putting one pocket right here and one pocket right here, and that makes the ducks pick one or the other right there. And if you got mojos, you can stick a mojo in this pocket right here and a mojo in that pocket right there, and you should be good to go. I like the W a lot, and I tend to use it kind of on lakes and bigger marshes if the horseshoe is really not doing the trick. Sometimes they like to have that choice between the two, and just kind of gives a little bit of a variety. It's definitely a good option. Next, we're gonna go ahead and set up our same blind. And now this one, you can either do this with a crosswind or a wind at your back. It really doesn't matter. You can do this over, you can do any of these over water or over a field, or I guess that's your only two options. These decoy spreads are something that you can use on water or in a field, any situation really. One of these is gonna work with your decoys. So this one right here, we got our blind. We're gonna have the wind at our back once again, sitting right there. And this one is the pods. I like to run pods sometimes, you know, on farm ponds and stuff. Sometimes I run pods or in marshes. But that's when I kind of group up my decoys, and sometimes I like to keep that W shape, but I'm running pods. So I'm gonna have a pod of like 6 decoys here, a pod of like 5, a pod of 7 or 8, and then a pod of like 3 or 4. And that's just kind of off the wall numbers, but you want to just kind of group them up and put the decoys, you know, 3 or 4 feet apart from each other, but still in close proximity to each other, and maybe like 12 feet between these guys and 8 feet between these. So you're not like making a ginormous spread, but sometimes if you make pods, it makes the spread look a little bit bigger, and spacing out the decoys does that too. But I like to run pods on crosswind days, so if it was a crosswind day, I wouldn't put this one out here, I'd put another pod out here. And sometimes I like to put just like 2 or 3 decoys right in the middle. I've done that on field hunts for geese. I put 3 of my Bigfoots, the active ones, and make them look like they just landed. And the honkers at our feet video, that's one where we had that, and the geese seriously landed right on top of those birds right there. So, or the decoys. This is another one of my favorite decoy spreads. So I've got the horseshoe, the J, the W, and the pods. You can really not go wrong with any of those, and just kind of use your best judgment. But most of the time, I'm gonna either be running a horseshoe, just big spread horseshoe, and then if they're not liking that, I switch over to pods right away, or switch over to a W. It just kind of depends on what the birds are doing. If you guys have any decoy spreads that I didn't cover in this video, leave it in the comments. Just kind of explain what you do and what your favorite decoy spread is, because I'm always wanting to learn more, and you guys have taught me a lot just by leaving comments and giving me another way of thinking about things. Like, you know, I say one thing, you're like, you know, there's another way of doing this, and I do it this way. I like that. I like having that connection with you guys and learning from you guys. I enjoy teaching some of the newer waterfowl hunters, but, you know, I've got learning to do myself. Nobody can really know too much about duck hunting. There's always more to be learned. Generally speaking, you can use these decoy spreads over water in a field for ducks or for geese. I hope this helps you guys out with your next outing going into the field to take some wild game for edible purposes. I'm seeing through you, YouTube. So this coming Saturday, if you guys don't follow me on Snapchat, you probably should, but I told you this the other day. I'm heading down to Louisiana. I'm going to be fishing Lake Charles. I'm going from Saturday until next Thursday. I'll be in Louisiana doing some redfish fishing, getting shrimp, crabs, flounders, speckled trout. I have no clue what I'm getting into really, but I'm really looking forward to it, and it's going to be an experience, and I'm going to try and record every second of it that I can and make some videos for you guys while I'm down there. Once I get back from the trip, I'm going to actually have one day. I get back on Thursday, then there's Friday, and then the following Saturday is the opening day for duck season. So it is going to be a very, very busy next couple of weeks for me, and then after next Saturday, it's just going to be go time. We're going to just hit the ground running and go. I don't know what to expect for this duck season, and I'm hoping it's a good one, but you know, you never know until the birds get here and you're actually in the field doing everything. But most of the time we figure out a way to get some birds, and I film. If you guys didn't know, I actually film all of my hunts, so I don't like film a hunt and then be like, that wasn't good, I toss it. I film everything. So I feel like I'm babbling now, so I'm gonna shut up. If you want to follow me on my social media, it's on the screen. I've got Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, and Facebook. Give me a follow on your preferred social media account. If you want to pick up a hat like this, or a hoodie, or a hat like this one, or a hat like this one, or a hat like this one, I'm going a little overboard with this, but you can go to MalleyWhikert.outfitters.com and order one if you would like. That's all I got for you guys today. I'll catch you on the next one.